I'm Nate Lind, and I help people interested in buying or selling online businesses get the transaction done without the deal falling apart. If you're looking to buy or sell online businesses, then be sure to keep tuning in for more videos like this one. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications about new videos and interviews. And introduce yourself in the comments. Are you a buyer or a seller? Enjoy the interview. We've got another exciting interview with you, and this time it's with an individual that has successfully sold their business. His name is Chris Nowak. He's a friend of mine. He's been to some of the local masterminds that I've thrown as well. Chris, tell us a little bit about your background.
So I started in e-commerce a long time ago, back when Blockbuster was still around, so that kind of dates it. I was selling used video games, buying them from Blockbuster.
New kids only know about that because it's in the Marvel movie.
Yeah.
She lands in a Blockbuster.
So I was driving around and just hitting every Blockbuster in like Southern California I could, emptying them out of their video games and selling them on eBay and Amazon actually back then too. This was before fulfillment by Amazon even existed. And little did I know that that account that I started way back when would turn into a multi-million-dollar business one day. But around 2014, end of 2014, I heard a podcast by Ryan Moran, 12 months to a million, and I'm driving home, sitting in traffic. I was working in the roofing industry at the time, and you know, I had a little bit of experience in e-commerce from before, and I had always sold things on and off since the Blockbuster days, but never really anything big. And so I knew, right, there was money in selling online. And then I had business experience because I had started, grew, and sold a pool business, pool servicing business. And so, you know, what he was saying was, you know, like I knew it was viable. I didn't know if he was totally full of, you know what, or not. But I said, well, you know, if he's telling the truth, like I think I could do this. So we had gotten a tax return early 2015 from the sale of the pool service business, and it was like 18 grand. I think we took a trip to Hawaii for like 3 grand, and the rest of the money I decided I'm going to start this. I'm going to try this Amazon thing. So started that business early 2015. You know, started researching products, doing all that, and you know, I landed on, you know, some baby products because we had just had our first daughter. So I was using this stuff in my own house anyway, and figured, you know, I can improve on this. I can do something with this market. So first sale occurred, I think it was July. I'm forgetting the date now. July 15th, I think. And I ended up doing the 12 months to a million, like on the day. You know, 12 months later, like to the day, it was like $1,315,000.
Wow.
And so I reached out to Ryan, like, hey, you know, what do I do? I think he responded, just said like, keep on going. I was like, okay. You know. During this time, there wasn't much information out there, and so we had formed a couple of us that just kind of met through Facebook had formed, you know, a Facebook group, which would later become, you know, $1 million sellers now. And so, you know, we were just helping each other out, you know, figuring out our businesses on Amazon. You know, I grew that into, just in 30 months, it was doing about $4 million run rate of revenue. And some guy in that group, the Facebook group, reached out to me and said, hey, there's this company, website closers. Like they'll sell your business for you, and they're getting these multiples. And it was like between 3 and 4x multiple. And I was like, okay, like, you know, if they get me that on this business that I built so quick, you know, so rapidly, and I kind of didn't know where to take it, yeah, I'll sell. So, you know, 6 months later, I sold the business. So it was like a 3-year from start to finish process, and, you know, built it up to about $4 million in revenue, and then sold it. So.
What sort of challenges did you experience going through the M&A process?
So when I sold, there weren't many. I think there was maybe one other person in that group that is now $1 million. I think it was $1 million. It was $1 million sellers by then. So there's only one other guy in the group, you know, that it was at least public at the time that he had sold a larger brand. Now there had been guys who had sold smaller brands years ago, right? I had sold my pool business years ago, so but something like of this scale and totally digital, I had no experience with. So just trying to get information on, how to value it, what the banks want, because they're the ones financing most of these. I was in that range where it was through the SBA program. Just information wasn't out there, people who had gone through the process really and what to expect and all the stresses that you go through of selling a larger business and the emotion that's tied to that, the payday really is kind of what it's all about. And then the emotions of, letting go of your business that you grew. So there wasn't much information. So that was probably the biggest struggle, was just working my way through it, over the 6-month course and staying the course. And yeah.
Did you have a plan for what you were going to do after you sold the business?
Yeah, so I had started a software company in the Amazon space called My PPC Pal. So it was like one of the first automation tools for Amazon sellers on pay-per-click. And so my initial intent was, I'm going to focus on that business. As an entrepreneur, it's always like the new shiny object that you're excited about, what got you there? You think it's boring and old. So yeah, that was the initial intent, was I'm going to focus on this software thing. I'm going to try to grow this, put some time into it. I also want, if you look at a sale of an Amazon business, the way I was looking at it, at least, it was like diversification of a big chunk of money, right? So I had a large chunk of money invested in an Amazon business. It would be like, if you had a several $1 million house and that was your only asset, you'd want to sell that, right? And maybe you get $1 million house, and then you take the other millions and you put it into something else. So now you're diversified. And so that's kind of how I was looking at it. I think I was too heavily into a single thing. And I wanted to diversify, right? So yeah, the goal was to diversify into some investments, feel that relief from the diversification, but then also, focus on the pay-per-click software.
Yeah, because that diversification gives you security, right? Passive income or other income sources.
Yeah, you almost, I almost started thinking, I definitely thought differently, right? Once I sold, and you almost start to think about like, what do I want to do, rather than being like so tied to a business, that I created. And really, I never had the intent of it getting that big. Not in my wildest dreams, could I imagine that I would listen to a podcast and then 3 years later have this giant business? So, yeah, it was definitely, I wanted to diversify, and it's a good thing. It's a healthy thing, I think, too, right? If you just look at standard investment advice or portfolio advice, you want diversification in your portfolio. You're going to buy stocks. You don't just want to buy one stock.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you talk a little bit about who you think like these successful personality types or the motivations are for people who want to sell a business? Like you mentioned just a little bit ago, that kind of chasing the shiny object, looking at other things as an entrepreneur. That's something that a lot of entrepreneurs I see, have that type of that type of personality. They're great at the startup. They get bored in the systematizing and the operations and standard operating procedures and stuff that it takes to grow. Do you think that's a good personality type for considering selling their business?
I think everyone that looks to sell, because look, when a business is growing and it's growing what you see in your control and things are fantastic, no entrepreneur in his right mind is going to sell that business, right? So they either reach a point of holy crap, they almost get scared of their own business. And I think that's what happened to me, right? I got scared of, it was nearly a 7-figure profit a year business when I sold it. And my fear was, wow, I don't want this to just dwindle away. And I, look back and being like, wow, I wish I would have sold that thing while it was making $1 million profit. And then the other side of me, why I think I sold, was I reached a point where, I had started the business to, like I said, we had just had our first daughter. And I was really like, hey, if I can do this thing on the side and pay for her college over the course of the next 18 years, right? If I could just make enough money to pay for her college, that's a great side business, And so when you start with that intent and then it turns into this massive thing, I really had no plan, I am not the entrepreneur that wants a Fortune 500 company and to be gone, well, everyone's working at home now, but, right, to be gone, 50, 60 hours a week away from my kids while they're growing. I'm really more of the lifestyle entrepreneur. I enjoy working from home. I enjoy, the second I get off, it's like, boom, it's family time. I don't have to sit in traffic. I used to hate the traffic, right? When I heard Ryan's podcast, that was something that really drove me to do this. But, so I think people either reach a point of fear where they're like, holy cow, this thing is so big, it's starting to scare me. Or they reach a point of, I don't know what's next. I don't know how to scale this further. They don't have the mindset to scale it further, or they don't want to scale it further. And I think I was like the combination of the both, right? So I was like the perfect candidate. But I think there's also like, both of those can be individual reasons. I also think sometimes you start a business, let's say with a partner, and that partnership can go awry, or it could, it can take a turn. It can, do something where basically, or one partner might get interested in something else, and so there's a reason for that too. And there's like partnerships involved that, they didn't expect the business to get that big either, So I think those three things are like all great candidates for people looking to, sell, and why they would sell. At least my opinion.
Yeah, no, I mean I think it's really accurate in the number of conversations I've had with potential sellers of businesses. It takes somebody that is very conscious of their own fears, their own frustrations, their own motivations, and I think those individuals make great candidates to potentially sell their business because they can let go. And they can recognize that this isn't the only ride at the rodeo that they'll ever have in the world of business. Mm-hmm. And it's really it's interesting to see different people's motivations. And I have a number of conversations with folks that don't follow up, and I think that kind of categorically, what I see in those are they're not ready to let go. So in some cases, there may be a bit of ego involved too, or they feel like they know it all, or that they can take it to not only do they get it to $1 million in profit, they think they can get it to $10 million in profit, or go to $100 million. And I find that really fascinating because I've kind of chipped away at some of those individuals and gotten to the nuts and bolts of what they're actually making. And many times they will shield their lack of profit behind how they're building infrastructure, and they're building enterprise, and they're building processes. Frequently, that I think it's a little bit of fooling oneself. That you can have a successful business, and the top line is huge, maybe tens of millions, 100 million, etc. But your profit is razor thin, if any, in some of those cases. And those in particular I have found to be, somewhat challenging to have a rational conversation around. About 50%, I think on average, 50% of an entrepreneur's profit in their business is waiting for them on the exit. So if they're in the midst of trying to build a business just for cash flow, or even for not for cash flow, just for enterprise value, the sooner they get to exit, the sooner they're going to realize that actual payday of what they were trying to get into. And frequently the buyers that are out there can be some that are very synergistic and can help take the business to the next level. In other cases, like the under $10 million, route, often they're, especially if it's an SBA situation like yours, full on transfer the business, you're not involved in it after a transition period. But that's, I just think it's interesting from a motivation perspective, what, who succeeds and then who doesn't even start the race, so to speak. What would you do differently going back and having gone through the process of selling your business, or any way that you would better have prepared yourself?
I always say the one thing I wish I would have done different, and the brokers, right? Ron and Jason did tell me this, and I think they tell everyone this, but not everyone hears it equally, is don't take your foot off the gas, right? Just because you get into this sales mode, the thing isn't going to sell overnight, and a lot of these deals, they can fall through, for who knows what reason, right? The bank doesn't approve it, or the buyer changes his mind, or, coronavirus happens. So there's lots of reasons they can drop out. So don't think of it as, halfway, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Keep both feet in the business until the day you get that transfer. And then it's, becomes your responsibility just to train that new person and teach them as much as you can about that business. And hopefully, they succeed with it. But until it's in their hands and they officially own it, don't back off. And I did that. I backed off. I was like kind of in, yay, let's get out of this mode. Like counting my days till payday. And it took about double the time that I originally thought it was. And then at the end, I was starting to think like, oh crap, like, okay, now I'm going to probably have to continue running this business. I really thought it wasn't going to close at the end just because it had taken so long, and I thought the bank wasn't approving it. And so, I had to it's like reversing mindsets. And it was more of a mindset shift than anything. It was like I was still running the business the way I was before. But maybe I wasn't as aggressive on, advertising efforts, or maybe I wasn't as aggressive on launching new products. I think I only launched like 2 SKUs like the final year at exit, where before I was, and these are like the lifebloods of these businesses are launching new SKUs. I kind of backed off. I just kept them in the pipe, So then, towards the end, I was like, oh crap, I'm gonna have to like over launch SKUs now. I'm gonna have to launch all these ones that I have pent up, and I ended up all closing. But I think we did reduce the value in the end because of me backing off, of certain things. There was a decrease in value in the business in the last 90 days of it, basically. So.
Yeah, it's I'm glad Jason and Ron had mentioned that to you. They've drilled it into me and any of the calls that I listen in on, and in their podcast on deal closures too. There's a whole conversation about that, is not letting up and having that trajectory of sales continue on the growth. And I get a lot of people that reach out to me, and buyers that are looking for motivated sellers, and sellers that aren't profitable, that are trying to sell for these grand values. And I think the reality of what we see with website closers is there's plenty of buyers that are interested in businesses that are profitable and that are continuing to grow their profit. The number of buyers that's interested in distressed online businesses is quite a bit smaller, and to actually get those closed is quite a bit harder. And I think the incentive for the incentive for a broker is closely aligned with that of a seller who has a profitable business. Everybody wants to see the sale price go at a point in which everyone is commensurately compensated for. The buyers that are interested in motivated deals or distressed businesses, I don't know many brokers that will represent those. And it's kind of similar in real estate too. Like there's some real estate agents that will represent distressed and motivated sellers, but often it's investors that are they're having to cherry pick and hunt their own deals to get to those motivated sellers. Share one story of tension that arose between you and your buyer, and in the process. So we were talking about this in another segment, and the difference in personalities can be interesting. There's a lot of A types that are involved in on the buying side and on the selling side, and tension, I think, undoubtedly will arise. It's not an if, it's a when. Tell us a little bit about a tense moment in this process and how that was overcome.
Yeah. Luckily, I really got along with the buyer of my business. We got to meet up in person before we even signed any sort of, letter of intent or anything like that. So we built some comfort level with him, and I'm a calm guy. He was a calm guy. We're both kind of even tempered, I guess. So that really helped a lot, and I just felt like it was my job the whole time just to get stuff that him and his bank were requesting as soon as possible. Couple things I can remember. One, I got a text from him one day, and he's just like, "Hey, I see this like other person on your listing. Like, what's that?" And it's like, "Well, that's a hijacker. That's what I told you about, And he was gone within a couple days, right? So there was some, I was of course fearful that, oh crap, he's going to back out of it every time anything happened, right? Whether it was like a 1-star review or like this, like the hijacker, I was thinking, okay, it's done. He's not going to want to do this business anymore. But he was very calm about it. Seems like he was less worried than I was. I'd say the biggest tense, I remember I was going on a walk one day, or going on a run one day, and he called me right as I'm like leaving my neighborhood to then start my loop run. So I'd do like a walk, then stretch at the end of the walk, and then start my run. So he calls me while I'm walking out of my house. And we were very close to the end, like very close to when we thought it was going to fund. And it ended up taking like 2 more weeks. But so we were talking about like transition at this point, right? And he wanted to like, "Hey, Chris, can we start to transfer everything over, now?" And I was like, no, like, like money needs to hit my bank before I transfer anything. And I confirmed that before this process even started, with Ron and Jason, and they confirmed it with me before. So I was like, I'll send an email to all of us, And I had brought up to him at that time that I was like, there is a risk of, this account being suspended basically for transferring, and how are you going to handle that process, right? And he had this whole like, checks and balances system to transfer over an account. Just come to find out, I didn't even know, but he had done this 2 times before with other people. So he had his systems in place, right? And so I just remember those 2 being stressful points, and maybe they were more stress for me than him, because it wasn't his first rodeo. So
any parting comments or thoughts or anything else that you would like to share with this list of viewers of ours, and keeping in mind many of them are on the journey of selling their own business or thinking about buying one?
Yeah. If you're on the journey of selling it, obviously contact Nate. He's with, I think, Website Closers is like definitely has the most experience, like just by fact, right? They've sold more of these online businesses than I think anyone else now has in the world. So there's a ton of experience. And then, Nate's been on the owner side too, right? So he understands what it is like to own one of these things. It's your baby, right? You're kind of attached to some of the people in a way that you employ. So yeah, definitely reach out to Nate, and then, just take your time with it. I was in this like big rush to the finish. So just realize that the buyer wants to buy it as much as you want to sell it, and just try to work out a fair deal for everyone.
Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to subscribe and tell me what you thought about it in the comments. Your comments encourage me to continue posting videos, and they give me ideas about what to post next. I read and reply to every single one. Also, if you own an online business and you're curious of how much it's worth, click the link below to get a free business valuation with a member of our team. Who knows? It may even be me you're talking to.